Aaliyah Vance held the hand of the most feared man in Seoul while he was at his weakest. She didn't know his name. Now that he's healed, he's decided she belongs to him. It was 3 a.m. in the VIP wing of Seoul General Hospital, the hour when even the fluorescent lights sounded tired. Aaliyah pushed her cleaning cart toward room 808, the one the other janitors refused to enter. Then the monitors started screaming. Not beeping. Screaming. Through the open doorway, she saw him. Bandaged chest. Sweat-drenched sheets. Tattoos curling up his neck like black vines. 2 suited guards stood inside the room, but they weren't touching him. They were frozen. The man on the bed convulsed, powerful frame fighting restraints she hadn't even noticed before. Aaliyah didn't think. She moved. She dropped her mop, ran to the bedside, and grabbed his burning hand. Scarred knuckles. Fighter's grip. Heat radiating like fire. "You're okay," she whispered, pressing a cold cloth to his forehead. "I'm here." His eyes snapped open, dark, dangerous, unfocused. They locked onto hers. "Stay," he rasped. Not a request. A command from a man who wasn't used to asking. She stayed. Through the fever breaking. Through the hour when the world feels hollow and cold. She hummed softly, wordless, steady, something human in a room full of machines and fear. When his breathing finally steadied, she tried to pull away. His hand caught her wrist. Gentler now. But unyielding. He pressed something into her palm. A matte black card embossed with a silver hawk. Then he closed his eyes again. 2 weeks later, Aaliyah's supervisor called her into the office. "Your father's hospital bills," she said, staring at the paperwork like it was a mistake. "They've been paid. All of them. Every charge stamped in red, balance, 0. Payment source, Seoul Tower Enterprises." The same name, printed on the black card in Aaliyah's pocket. The next morning, a message arrived with an address in Gangnam, top floor of a glass tower overlooking the entire city. A car was already waiting. The card from room 808 wasn't a thank you. It was an invitation. And Aaliyah was about to learn that the man she'd comforted in the middle of the night wasn't just a patient. He was a king recovering in secret. The VIP wing existed in a different world than the rest of Seoul General Hospital. Aaliyah learned that her first week on the night shift. The 8th floor didn't feel like a hospital. It felt like a secret. But the 8th floor was silent as a tomb. Room 808 sat at the end of a hallway that seemed longer at night. 2 men always stood outside, same dark suits, same blank faces, same way of watching her that made her skin prickle. They never spoke. Never moved. Just watched. The other janitors refused to clean the VIP wing. "Important people hide there," Mrs. Kim warned. "And you don't ask questions about important people in Seoul." But Aaliyah needed the overtime. Her father's medicine cost more each month, and the hospital gave extra pay for the VIP wing. So while the other cleaners gossiped in the break room, she pushed her cart onto that quiet 8th floor. The first night, she'd only glimpsed him through the door, a shape in the bed, perfectly still. Machines blinked in the darkness. The guards had stepped in front of her view immediately. "Just cleaning," she'd said softly, showing her mop. They let her work but watched every move. By the 3rd night, she'd learned the pattern. The guards changed at 2 a.m. The nurses checked vitals at 3 a.m. but never stayed long. And the patient soul, according to the chart outside, never had visitors. No flowers. No cards. No one who cared beyond the men paid to stand watch. Power didn't stop him from being alone. A man could be powerful enough to afford the most expensive room in Seoul, but still wake up alone. The alarm started screaming at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Aaliyah was 3 doors down, scrubbing a bathroom that didn't need scrubbing. She dropped her brush and ran. Room 808's door stood open. The guards were inside, frozen like statues. One held a phone to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. The other just stared at the bed, hands clenched into fists. Patient Seoul was burning up. Even from the doorway, Aaliyah could see the sweat soaking through his hospital gown. His body shook hard enough to rattle the bed frame. The monitors beeped frantically, numbers climbing into the red. "Where's the nurse?" Aaliyah pushed past the guards. "Coming," one said in broken English. But he looked scared. She grabbed ice, soaked a towel, pressed it to his burning skin. "Hey," she said softly. "You're going to be okay." His eyes opened, wild, unfocused, seeing things that weren't there. He said something in Korean, voice rough as gravel. "Shoo." She kept the cloth cool, and kept her voice calm. "I'm here. You're safe." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Strong. Tight enough to hurt. Aaliyah didn't pull away. Instead, she did what her grandmother used to do. She sang. Nothing fancy, just a quiet melody her mother hummed while cooking. No words, just sound. Something human in all this beeping and fear. His grip loosened. His breathing steadied. "Stay," he whispered. So she did. After the fever broke, something changed. Patient Seoul started watching her. But he never spoke. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 3 weeks. Like a ghost, one nurse whispered. A very scary ghost. Aaliyah didn't find him scary. Sad, maybe. Lonely, definitely. She started timing her cleaning for when he was awake. She'd hum while she worked, the same melody from the fever night. Sometimes she talked, even though he never answered. "My dad's in this hospital too," she said one evening, wringing out her mop. "Dementia. Most days he doesn't remember me." She forced a small smile. "But sometimes he does." "That's enough." His eyes shifted to her. "Listening." She swallowed. "But sometimes he smiles." "That's enough." When she looked up, he was staring at her. Not blank. Not distant. Intense. His jaw tightened. Something dark flickered behind his eyes, not pity. Not sympathy. Something sharper. "Sorry," she said quickly, stepping back. "I talk too much." He opened his mouth. Footsteps echoed in the hall. The guard stepped inside. Whatever he was about to say disappeared. When Aaliyah left that night, she could feel his gaze following her all the way to the elevator doors. Aaliyah knew something was wrong the moment she stepped off the elevator. The hallway felt different. Empty in a way that made her stomach twist. The guards were gone. She walked faster, her cleaning cart rattling. Room 808's door stood open, never a good sign. She peeked inside. The bed was stripped bare. No machines beeping. No charts on the wall. The room looked like no one had ever been there at all. "Excuse me?" Aaliyah caught a nurse passing by. "The patient in 808, did he get moved?" The nurse's expression shut down instantly. "Patient Seoul." The man with the Aaliyah gestured to her neck, indicating the tattoos. "I don't know who you're talking about." The nurse walked away quickly, almost running. Aaliyah stood in the empty doorway, confused. He had been recovering. Sitting up. Eating. And now, nothing. Mrs. Kim found her still standing there 10 minutes later. "Stop asking questions," the older woman hissed, pulling Aaliyah away from the room. "VIP patients come and go. We clean. We forget. That's the job." "But where did he?" "Aaliyah." Mrs. Kim gripped her shoulders. "In Seoul, some people are ghosts. They appear. They disappear. If you're smart, you don't wonder why." Her eyes were deadly serious. That man was dangerous. Be grateful he's gone. But Aaliyah wasn't grateful. She was worried. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about those dark eyes watching her. About the way he'd held her hand during the fever. About how he'd listened to her stories like they mattered. She touched her wrist where he'd gripped her, and felt foolish for missing a patient who'd never even said her name. The envelope arrived on a Thursday. Aaliyah was finishing her shift when her supervisor called her into the office. The woman's face looked strange, confused and maybe a little scared. "This came for you," she said, sliding a thick manila envelope across the desk. "From the billing department." Aaliyah's heart sank. More bills. Her father's care was expensive, and she was already behind on last month's payment. She opened it with shaking hands. Then stared. "Paid in full," the paper said in bold letters. Every single charge. Months of hospital bills, physical therapy, medications, all marked with red stamps that read balance, 0. "There must be a mistake," Aaliyah whispered. "That's what I said." Her supervisor pointed to the bottom of the page. "But look at the payment source. Seoul Tower Enterprises." The name hit Aaliyah like cold water. Everyone in Seoul knew that name. One of the biggest companies in the city. "Do you know someone there?" her supervisor asked. She thought about room 808. The fever. The black card. I don't think so." But her hand went to her pocket, where she'd kept that card. She pulled it out, matte black with a silver hawk embossed on one side. On the back, a single line in Korean characters she couldn't read. "What does this say?" She showed her supervisor. The woman's face went pale. "It says debts must be honored." Aaliyah sat down hard. Patient Seoul hadn't disappeared. He'd just stopped being a patient. And somehow, he decided her family's debt was now his problem to solve. The opportunities started small. First, her father was moved to a private room, the kind with windows and comfortable chairs. The nurse said it was a computer error but wouldn't meet Aaliyah's eyes. Then her supervisor offered her day shifts. Better hours, better pay, and she'd never asked for them. "You've been working hard," the woman said, but her voice sounded weird. Nervous. "Consider it a reward." She should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt watched. The strangest part came on Monday. She arrived at work to find a letter in her locker. Heavy paper, expensive. Inside, a job offer from Seoul Tower Enterprises for an administrative assistant position. The salary made her dizzy, more money in 1 month than she made in 6. Interview scheduled for Friday 7 p.m., it said. A car will be provided. No signature. No explanation of how they got her name. She crumpled the letter and threw it away. 10 minutes later, she pulled it back out. That night, she tried to visit her father's new room and found 2 men in suits standing outside. Not security guards, something else. They nodded politely and let her pass, but she felt their eyes tracking her the whole time. Inside, her father was watching a new TV, in a bed that looked brand new, with flowers on the windowsill she definitely hadn't bought. "Dad, did someone come to see you?" He smiled vaguely. "Nice men. Very polite. Said they were friends of yours." Aaliyah had no friends like that. She pulled out the black card again, turning it over in her hands. The silver hawk seemed to watch her. Whoever Patient Seoul really was, he wasn't done with her yet. And Friday was only 4 days away. The car arrived at exactly 7 p.m. Not a regular car, a black Genesis sedan so shiny Aaliyah could see her reflection in it. The driver wore a suit nicer than anything she owned and opened the door without saying a word. She almost didn't get in. But curiosity won. And maybe something else. The memory of dark eyes watching her. Of a hand gripping hers during a fever. Of someone who'd paid her father's debts without being asked. The drive through Seoul felt like entering a different world. They left her neighborhood behind and climbed into Gangnam, where the buildings touched the sky. Seoul Tower stood taller than all of them. Glass and steel, gleaming like a knife. Marble floors. Designer suits. No one looked up. Aaliyah looked down at her best dress, the one she wore to church, and felt small. Miss Vance. A woman in a perfect suit appeared. Please follow me. The elevator didn't have buttons for every floor. Just a keycard scanner. They went up, and up, and up. Aaliyah's ears popped. When the doors opened, she forgot to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed all of Seoul spread out like a glowing map. The furniture looked expensive enough to pay her rent for a year. Everything was black, silver, and perfectly placed. And there, standing against the window like he owned the sky itself, was Patient Seoul. Except he wasn't Patient Seoul anymore. He wore a black suit that fit like it was made for him, because it probably was. His hair was styled back, showing the tattoos that crawled up his neck. He looked powerful. Dangerous. Nothing like the sick man in room 808. He turned, and those eyes found hers. Miss Vance, he said. We need to talk. Aaliyah's voice came out smaller than she wanted. You paid my father's bills. I did. He moved away from the window, each step deliberate. Sit. Please. It sounded like a request, but Aaliyah knew better. She sat on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than her car. You disappeared from the hospital, she said. Everyone acted like you were never there. That was the point. He sat across from her, relaxed but somehow coiled. Ready. I was never supposed to be in that hospital at all. Very few people knew I was there. Why? 3 months ago, someone tried to kill me. They nearly succeeded. I secretly recovered. Aaliyah's hands gripped the chair arms. And the guards were there to keep me alive. And to keep everyone else quiet. His eyes never left her face. You weren't supposed to matter, Miss Vance. You were just the night janitor. Easy to overlook. But I stayed, she whispered, understanding now. You stayed. Something flickered in his expression. When my fever spiked and my own guards hesitated, you ran toward danger. You held my hand. You sang to me like I was worth saving. Everyone's worth saving. No. The word was hard. Final. They're not. I've lived long enough to know that most people are only kind when it benefits them. He leaned forward. You asked for nothing. Expected nothing. That makes you either very stupid or very rare. Which do you think I am? Rare. He said it with certainty. I am Kang-ho Seoul. And in my world, when someone saves your life, a debt is created. That debt must be repaid. Kang-ho stood and walked to his desk. He returned with a folder, thick, official-looking. Your father's care is permanent. Best doctors. Private facility. He set the folder on the table between them. But that's not enough. That's already too much, Aaliyah said. I can't accept. You don't have a choice. His voice was firm but not unkind. The debt exists whether you acknowledge it or not. What happens next is up to you. He opened the folder. Inside was a contract with her name at the top. Personal assistant to the chairman, she read aloud. Her eyes went wide at the salary. This is impossible. It's quite possible. You'll work for me. Directly. Some travel required. I'm a janitor, Aaliyah said flatly. I mop floors. I don't know anything about running a company. You know how to read people. How to stay calm in a crisis. How to show compassion in a world that rarely deserves it. Kang-ho's gaze was intense. Those skills are far more valuable than knowing how to write an email. Why me? You could hire anyone. Someone qualified. Because everyone I hire wants something from me. Power. Money. Connection. He tilted his head slightly. You're the only person in 3 months who's looked at me and seen a human being, not a weapon or a bank account. Aaliyah looked down at the contract. The numbers blurred. What if I say no? Then the offer remains open. Your father's care continues regardless. The debt still exists. He paused. But I think you're too curious to walk away. You want to understand this world I live in. He was right, and they both knew it. When would I start? She asked quietly. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Aaliyah's first day started with a wardrobe delivery. At 7 a.m., 6 boxes waited outside her door. Her size. Her taste. Her future, pre-selected. Dresses, blazers, shoes she'd never be able to afford. A note said simply, dress code required. KS. She chose a simple black dress and felt like she was wearing a costume. The office Kang-ho gave her was next to his, separated by a glass wall. She could see him at his desk, working through papers with focused intensity. People came and went, bowing deeply before they spoke to him. Everyone treated him like a king. Coffee, Kang-ho said, appearing in her doorway. She jumped. I can get you some. No. Come have coffee with me. You need to understand how this works. His private office had a sitting area with a view that made her dizzy. He poured 2 cups himself, which surprised her. People are scared of you, Aaliyah said, accepting the cup. Yes. Why? Instead of answering, Kang-ho loosened his tie and unbuttoned his collar. The dragon tattoo she'd glimpsed in the hospital was fully visible now, black and silver scales wrapping around his throat, continuing down beneath his shirt. In my world, tattoos tell stories, he said. This dragon means I've killed to protect what's mine. The iron rings on my wrists, he rolled up his sleeves, showing black bands circling his forearms, mean I've survived attempts on my life. Aaliyah's cup rattled against the saucer. You're a gangster. A criminal. The iron fist of Seoul. He watched her carefully. Does that change things? She should say yes. Should run. But she thought about the man who'd gripped her hand during a fever. Who'd paid her father's bills without asking for anything back. I don't know yet, she said honestly. His smile was small but real. Good. Honesty is rare in my world. The rules were simple, Kang-ho explained. But breaking them could get you killed. Rule 1, don't ask about scars. Rule 2, if someone bows to me, you nod. Rule 3, never go anywhere without telling me. That's controlling. That's survival. My enemies will notice you within a week. Maybe sooner. His expression darkened. You're a weakness now. Something they can use against me. The words hit her like cold water. Then why did you hire me? Because you don't fear me. He met her eyes. And because keeping you close is safer than letting you wander around Seoul not understanding the danger you're in. A knock interrupted them. A man entered, tall, scarred, with tattoos covering both arms. He spoke rapid Korean to Kang-ho, who responded in the same language. The man's eyes flicked to Aaliyah. Curious. Calculating. Kang-ho said something sharp, and the man's expression went carefully blank. He bowed and left. What did you tell him? Aaliyah asked. That you're off limits. Completely. Kang-ho's voice was hard. Rule 4, if anyone in my organization makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. No exceptions. What will you do? Whatever is necessary. He said it like a promise and a threat. You saved my life, Aaliyah. In return, I'll make sure no one ever touches yours. The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy coat. She'd thought she was just accepting a job. She was starting to realize she'd accepted so much more. It happened on her 6th day. Aaliyah was reviewing Kang-ho's schedule when she heard shouting in Korean. She looked up just as Kang-ho's office door burst open. A man stormed in, younger, wild-eyed, with a gun. Time stopped. Aaliyah's scream caught in her throat. Kang-ho stood slowly from his desk, hands visible, expression calm as stone. The gunman shouted something. His hand shook. Aaliyah. Kang-ho's voice was quiet. Steady. Get behind the desk. Now. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Now, he repeated, harder. Her legs finally obeyed. She ducked behind her desk, hard hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Through the glass wall, she could see everything. Kang-ho spoke in Korean, low, controlled. The gunman yelled back, waving the weapon. But Kang-ho didn't flinch. He took a step forward. The gun fired. Aaliyah's world exploded into sound. She pressed her hands over her ears, squeezing her eyes shut. More shouting. A body hit the floor. Then silence. Then silence. Aaliyah. Kang-ho's voice, closer now. Look at me. She opened her eyes. He was crouched beside her desk, completely unharmed. Behind him, 3 of his men had the gunman pinned to the ground, the weapon kicked away. Are you hurt? Kang-ho's hands cupped her face, checking for injuries. The gun. She couldn't form full sentences. He missed. Badly. Kang-ho's jaw was tight. This is why I have rules, Aaliyah. This is the world I live in. She should quit. Walk out. Go back to mopping floors where the worst danger was slipping on wet tile. But when she looked at Kang-ho's face, at the concern there, the barely controlled rage at someone threatening her, she found herself reaching for his hand instead. Are you okay? She whispered. Something in his expression cracked. I am now. After the shooting, everything changed. Kang-ho moved Aaliyah's desk into his office. Non-negotiable, he said when she tried to protest. 2 guards were assigned to her personally, silent men who followed 3 steps behind wherever she went. This is too much, Aaliyah said. This is necessary. Kang-ho didn't look up from his paperwork. The attack was a message. They know about you now. Then let me go. I'll quit, go back to my old life. There is no going back. His eyes finally met hers. The moment you stepped into my world, you became a piece on the board. Leaving won't make you safe. It'll make you an easier target. The words terrified her because they made sense. She noticed the way his shoulders relaxed when she entered a room. How he asked her opinion in meetings, actually listening when she spoke. The soft looks he gave her when he thought she wasn't watching. And she started noticing her own reactions. The flutter in her stomach when he smiled. The way she found excuses to stay late. How she'd started thinking of him as Kang-ho instead of Mr. Seoul. One evening, she found him staring at security footage from the shooting, jaw clenched. You're going to find who sent him, she said quietly. I already know who sent him. Park Min-jun. One of my former lieutenants. Kang-ho's voice was ice. He's been trying to take over since I was in the hospital. What will you do? He looked at her for a long moment. What I always do. Remind him why they call me the Iron Fist. Aaliyah stepped closer. The gunman was just a kid. Barely 20. Scared out of his mind. Your point? Don't become the monster they think you are, she said. Not because of me. Kang-ho stood, closing the distance between them. You're everything. The meeting happened in a warehouse on the edge of Seoul. Kang-ho didn't want Aaliyah there, but she insisted. If I'm part of your world now, I need to see all of it. He'd agreed, reluctantly. 15 men sat around a metal table, Kang-ho's inner circle. When Aaliyah entered with Kang-ho, every eye turned to her. This is Miss Vance, Kang-ho said in English, then repeated it in Korean. She's under my direct protection. Touch her, and you will be answerable to me. The men nodded, but Aaliyah saw the calculations happening behind their eyes. Kang-ho pulled up security footage on a laptop. The shooter from last week. Kim Jae-sung. 22 years old, worked in our Itaewon operations. He paused the video. Someone told him where to find me. Someone in this room. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Boss, one man started. We would never. One of you did. Kang-ho's voice was deadly calm. I've been patient. Forgiving. I came back from the dead once. Some of you thought I wouldn't come back again. He walked slowly around the table. Aaliyah watched each man's face carefully. Most looked angry. One looked terrified. Mr. Seoul, Aaliyah said quietly. Everyone turned. She pointed. Him. The one in the blue jacket. The scarred man jumped up, reaching for something in his coat. He never made it. 2 guards had him on the ground in seconds. A small phone clattered across the floor, a burner, not his usual one. Kang-ho picked it up, scrolled through messages, then looked at the man with disappointment. Hyunwoo. You've been with me for 8 years. They offered me triple, the man gasped. Park promised. Park promises everyone everything. Kang-ho handed the phone to another guard. Get him out of my sight. As they dragged Hyunwoo away, Kang-ho turned to Aaliyah. How did you know? His hands, she said. Everyone else was angry. He was shaking with fear. Kang-ho was quiet on the drive back. Too quiet. You did well today, he finally said. I pointed at someone. You did the rest. You saw what 15 trained men missed. He looked at her. You're wasted as an assistant, Aaliyah. What am I then? He smiled slightly. I'm still figuring that out. They didn't go back to the tower. Instead, Kang-ho told the driver to stop in Gangnam's neon district, all flashing lights and crowded streets, so different from the quiet luxury of his office. Come, he said, offering his hand. Aaliyah took it without thinking. They walked through night markets selling everything from street food to fake designer bags. Kang-ho still wore his expensive suit, but somehow he didn't look out of place. This is where I grew up, Kang-ho said, stopping at a food stall. He ordered in rapid Korean, then handed Aaliyah a steaming skewer. Before the suits and the tower. When I had nothing. She bit into the meat, spicy, delicious. How did you go from here to there? By being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. He bought his own skewer. And by never forgetting where I came from. They ate standing up like regular people. For a moment, he wasn't the Iron Fist. Just a man showing her his city. Thank you, Aaliyah said. For what? For this. For treating me like. She struggled for words. Like I matter. Kang-ho stopped walking. The neon lights painted his face in blues and pinks. You matter more than you know. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. We should go back, he said softly, but he didn't move. Neither did she. Aaliyah found him on the tower's rooftop at 2 a.m. She'd woken to use the bathroom in the guest room Kang-ho insisted she use, safer than your apartment, and noticed his office light was still on. But he wasn't there. The rooftop was freezing. Seoul spread out below like a blanket of stars. Kang-ho stood at the edge, still in his shirt and pants, tie long gone. Can't sleep, she asked, wrapping her arms around herself. He turned, surprised. Then shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders without a word. I sleep better knowing where my enemies are, he said. Right now, Park is hiding. That makes me nervous. Aaliyah moved to stand beside him. You ever think about just walking away? Starting over somewhere else? Every day. His laugh was bitter. But men like me don't get to walk away. We die in this life or we die getting out of it. That's dark. That's true. He looked at her. You could still leave, you know. I'd make sure you were safe. Give you enough money to start anywhere. Is that what you want? What, I want? He gave a humorless smile. Irrelevant. The way he'd held her hand like it was a lifeline. How he'd paid her father's debts and asked for nothing back. You keep deciding what's good for me, she said. But you never ask what I want. What do you want? Aaliyah took a breath. I want to understand why the scariest man in Seoul looks so lonely. Something broke in his expression. He turned away, gripping the railing. Because everyone sees the iron fist, he whispered. No one sees Kang-ho. Except you. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. She left a coffee shop 3 blocks from the tower. Kang-ho's guards waiting outside like always. She'd just wanted 15 minutes of normal. To buy her own coffee like a regular person. The van pulled up so fast she didn't have time to scream. Hands grabbed her. A cloth covered her mouth, chemical sweet, making her head swim. She heard her guards shouting, then gunfire, then nothing. She woke up in darkness. Her head pounded. Her hands were tied behind her back, zip ties cutting into her wrists. The floor beneath her was cold concrete. She could smell oil and rust. She's awake, someone said in accented English. Lights flooded on, blinding her. Aaliyah squinted, trying to see. 3 men stood in front of her. The one in the middle was older, wearing an expensive suit. His smile made her skin crawl. Miss Vance, he said. I'm Park Min-jun. I believe you work for someone I know. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. Kang-ho will kill you for this, she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. Kang-ho will negotiate for this. Park crouched down to her level. You see, the Iron Fist has a weakness now. You. He'll give me everything I want to get you back. You don't know him. I know him better than you think. We were friends once. Brothers. Park's expression hardened. Before he took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from him. He stood and nodded to his men. Make her comfortable. We're going to be here a while. And when Kang-ho comes, and he will come, I want her alive to see him fall. The lights went out again. Aaliyah was alone in the dark, hands shaking, praying Kang-ho would find her. Praying he wouldn't do something stupid trying. Kang-ho found out within the hour. His guards had survived, barely. One was in surgery. The other gave him everything, the van's license plate, the direction they'd gone, the face of one man he'd recognized. Park's crew. Within minutes, his office became a war room. No, Kang-ho said, voice like gravel. This is personal. Park wants me, he gets me. Boss, it's a trap, one lieutenant argued. Of course it's a trap. Kang-ho checked his gun with practiced ease. But he has Aaliyah. Which means I don't care. He left a small team at the tower and took 5 men, his most trusted. They tracked Park to an abandoned factory in Incheon, 2 hours outside Seoul. The building was dark, surrounded by empty lots. Obvious trap. Kang-ho walked straight anyway. Park was waiting on the main floor, Aaliyah tied to a chair beside him. Even in dim light, Kang-ho could see the bruise forming on her cheek. Something animal woke up inside him. Let her go, Kang-ho said, voice deadly calm. Give me your territory. Your accounts. Everything. Park pressed a gun to Aaliyah's head. Or she dies. Aaliyah met Kang-ho's eyes. Shook her head slightly. Don't. You always were stupid, Min-jun, Kang-ho said. You think I built an empire by giving up what's mine? She's not territory. She's everything. Kang-ho's eyes blazed. Which is why you just made your last mistake. Everything happened at once. Kang-ho's men came through windows, through side doors. Park's crew scattered. In the chaos, Kang-ho moved, fast, brutal, efficient. He reached Aaliyah in seconds, cutting her free while his body shielded hers. Close your eyes, he whispered. She did. Behind her, the Iron Fist reminded Seoul why they feared his name. The safe house was quiet. Kang-ho carried Aaliyah inside himself, refusing to let anyone else touch her. He set her on the couch like she might break. I'm okay, she whispered, but her hands were still shaking. You're not. He knelt in front of her, examining the bruise on her face with gentle fingers. His knuckles were split and bleeding. This is my fault. This is Park's fault. I brought you into this world. I made you a target. His voice cracked. I should have let you walk away. Aaliyah caught his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Stop deciding what's good for me. Aaliyah. You think I don't know what I signed up for? I'm not stupid, Kang-ho. Her eyes were fierce. I stayed because I wanted to. Because when I look at you, I don't see the iron fist. I see the man who was alone in a hospital room. Who paid my father's debts. Who looks at me like I'm worth something. You're worth everything, he said roughly. That's the problem. Then stop pushing me away. She leaned closer. You saved my life tonight. Let me save yours. You already did. In that hospital. His thumb traced her cheekbone, careful of the bruise. I was dying long before that fever. From being alone so long I forgot what kindness felt like. You sang to me. Held my hand. Treated me like a person. You are a person. With you, yes. He rested his forehead against hers. You saved my soul. The least I can do is save your life. We save each other, she whispered. That's how this works. Kang-ho's answer was to pull her close, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him human. Maybe she was. 3 months later, Seoul's underworld had a new rule: don't touch Aaliyah Vance. Park Min-joon had disappeared, some said he fled to Japan, others whispered darker endings. Either way, his territory now belonged to Kang-ho. The coup was over. The Iron Fist's grip on Seoul was stronger than ever. But something else had changed too. Aaliyah no longer hid. She sat beside him, offering insights that even his oldest advisors respected. She'd learned to read the room, to spot lies, to understand the unspoken language of power. You're getting scary, Kang-ho told her one evening in his office. Good. She didn't look up from the contract she was reviewing. Maybe people will stop testing you if they know I'm watching. He smiled, the real smile he saved only for her. My queen of shadows. I'm not a queen. I'm still just the woman who held my hand in a hospital room. He pulled her up from her chair, wrapping his arms around her waist. The woman who saw Kang-ho instead of the Iron Fist. The woman who saved my life and somehow decided to stay. You make it sound romantic, Aaliyah teased. I got kidnapped. Shot at. Threatened more times than I can count. And yet you're still here. And yet I'm still here, she agreed softly. Through the window, Seoul glittered like a kingdom. Their kingdom now, built on secrets and shadows and a debt that had transformed into something neither of them expected. Kang-ho pressed a kiss to her temple. I love you, he said in Korean, then English. In every language. In every life. Aaliyah turned in his arms, looking up at the man the world feared but she knew completely. I love you too, she whispered. My Iron Fist. My Kang-ho. His phone buzzed. Once. Twice. 3 times. Kang-ho's expression shifted, the softness replaced by something cold and dangerous. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. What is it? Aaliyah asked. A message. He showed her the screen. 3 words in Korean, followed by a photo of the hospital where they'd first met. The debt isn't settled. Aaliyah's blood ran cold. Who sent that? Kang-ho's arms tightened around her, protective and possessive. Someone who just made a very fatal mistake. Outside, Seoul's neon lights flickered. Somewhere in the shadows, a new enemy was watching. And this time, they weren't just coming for the Iron Fist. They were coming for his queen. The war for Seoul's underworld wasn't over. It was just beginning. If you want part 2, subscribe. The next enemy won't come quietly.